Hello, Sonic movie fans, and welcome to episode 105 of the Sonic Movie Show, the only show that's about Sonic news, and Sonic movie news. And this week we're doing a video game movie review. My name is Ethan, and with me here to silently hill the revelation is Devin.
Fuck Facebook.
I am so glad that you picked that quote. Today of all days, too. Or it should be fuck Meta.
Fuck Meta.
Yeah.
Metaverse.
Yeah. That actually, that quote particularly, but before when she's giving her dramatic speech about, don't IM me on Facebook. I won't read your tweet, and I won't look at your blog. I'm like, this is a lot sooner than I realized. I knew it was 2012, but like,
Dude, this is when Tumblr was at its peak, boy.
This is before they banned porn. Okay. In any case, today's episode, we are talking about the 2012 film. I almost tried to find a platform that this video game was on. Film called Silent Hill Revelation. An interesting film. You know, not last week, but 2 weeks ago, we did Blood Rain. This is our second spooky one. Happy Halloween, by the way.
Happy Halloween.
Yes. This is a better film than Blood Rain by far. And only, 6 years later? In fact, Blood Rain came out a little bit earlier than the original Silent Hill film. And even if you compare those two, oh my god, it's the league's different.
Yeah,
league's
it really
different.
Yeah, it does feel like if we could just compare those, that one of them is in Silent Hill, and the other one is
questionable.
Questionable.
Actually, so, folks, if you haven't at least listened to our Blood Rain episode, you don't have to watch the movie. We don't really recommend it, but just go listen to that episode. And before continuing this one, because I have one more point I never made about that movie that I want to make with this one here and showing a stark difference. In our Blood Rain episode, Devin, you said that the movie felt like a play. Weird fake props, they looked really bad, etc., fumbling, acting and all that. I think what really clicks it home that felt like a play is that, Devin, when you're watching a play, and you're in a scene, let's say you're in the forest. People are walking through the forest, they do their lines, they do their thing, whatever. Now they need a new scene. They need to jump to Billy Zane. So the curtains come down, they move all the shit, the curtains come up, and you see something completely different. That's how scenes change in plays.
Yeah.
That fucking movie did the same thing, where it's just, you're somewhere else now, you're somewhere else now, you're somewhere else now. You don't see our characters actually moving through the world. None of it feels connected. And when I watch this movie, I'm like, oh, at least this movie does that, right? Or unless it's trying to intentionally confuse you in some parts because of the twistingness of, like, how did I end up here when I thought I was in a mall? Now I'm in some weird, you know what I mean?
Blood Rain was just so bad that, like, you learn to appreciate movies that you might have thought were bad or probably still are bad, but you're like, hey, they got the basic principles down, right? Of, like, here's how you go from scene to scene. Just movie making, like things
we
that
have
been done
our characters
since
going through
the
this.
1900s when people were first using film. Like,
yeah. No, this
such a bummer too, because I was really looking forward to, like, October. I'm like, oh, we're gonna do 2 video game horror movies. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
And, like, Blood Rain, I was just like, damn, bro.
Yeah,
like,
I'll watch
bad horror movies. I'll watch bad horror movies and enjoy them usually. That one, I was like,
oof. Yeah. Next year, we're probably, not confirming this, but we're probably going to be doing Blood Rain 2, Deliverance, and also the House of the Dead movie.
We might have to throw a third one in there, just because if Blood Rain 2 is so bad, I might be like...
Depends. If there are 5 Sundays in the month, then sure. It depends on how many Sundays there are, I guess. But yeah, Silent Hill Revelation, much better than Blood Rain. If we want to start our own little mini ranking of October movies, you have Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill Revelation, and then Blood Rain. And I think it probably goes Blood Rain bottom, and then we can just argue. But I don't really think it matters, because that movie's last.
Unless Blood Rain 2 is somehow worse. Somehow.
It could be. It's direct to DVD, which isn't necessarily an indicative of the quality, but, like, it's indicative of the reception of the first one.
I still don't get how they're like, we need to make a second one. And a third.
That movie made $3.5 million.
The actors probably got nothing. Meatloaf got $10.
Silent Hill, coming out months later in box office, made 32 times that.
Oh my!
97 million.
That's low, you know.
And yeah, for what it is. But Silent Hill Revelation, coming out in 2012, made less. This one made $52.3 million at the box office. That's why we never got 52.
Still better.
I mean, yes, it's better than Blood Rain, but the original Silent Hill making 97, this one's 52.
It's still really low numbers. I'm actually surprised. So, like, I have the first Silent Hill movie on DVD. Like, my dad bought it for us when the movie, I think, came out maybe the year after. And, like, I remember liking the movie, and in our review, I generally liked that movie. I think it's really cool. There's moments of cool shit in it.
There's cool shit in it.
And
that's about it.
But, like, I never knew that there was a sequel. You think that, like, I would just, like...
Yeah.
But, like,
and I think...
And it has the same actors for the most part in it, too.
It's got Sean Bean back in it.
He's back.
Yeah, he's not dead, which is, like, what? If you cast Sean Bean, you need to kill him. Like, that's the rule.
Yeah. He survives 2 movies. Silent Hill movies. Who would have thought? A movie, like, about killing and monsters and shit, he survives those.
Well, I mean, the third movie that I'm guessing that they were actually planning on making, but this movie made, like, a lot less money, so they canceled it or didn't greenlight it or whatever, clearly was being set up to be him going back to find his wife. I think that was obvious. But at the same time, like, the first movie ended and didn't really have a direction. The second movie made up a direction.
I liked the ending of the first one, where it was just kind of like it left you to decide, kind of like,
yeah,
hey,
does he live with a ghost now? Like,
do
how
the
does this
ghosts
work?
just have to watch him be sad?
Yeah,
are they just they're stuck in our world, but a purgatory version of that, just constantly? Like, how does that look?
Yeah. But no, we watched this film. Overall thoughts. Okay. I feel like we've kind of already talked a little bit about it. I think this movie was good. Not amazing, not great, just good, I think that the beginning of the movie struggles a lot. It felt very boring. Pacing was very slow. Like a third of the way in the movie, I'm like, wow, they're not even in Silent Hill. They're in a hotel room or whatever. Like, this is boring. This is really boring. And then about the time that the mannequin spider pops up, I'm like, okay, I like this now. Because up until then, I'm like, man, this movie blows. The first one was much better just because it was cool. Until we get to, like, stuff that's like the first movie, and I'm like, okay, this is better. I think all the acting's fine. I don't think this does much lore-wise. It just feels, if they're trying to set up a constant series... You know what I mean, so to speak? Like, this movie doesn't really do much to that other than, like, it seems like it's over, but it's not. So overall, I'm like, this is pretty good. I think I'd rather watch the first movie again if I had to pick. I don't think I'll ever watch this movie again.
So for me, I actually liked the beginning a little bit more than I think maybe you did. Because I was confused of whether or not this was going to be... Because I didn't look at the cast at all. I didn't want to spoil myself, and it's just funny. There's 2 Game of Thrones actors in it, like years.
I see
before,
the one.
Kit Harington's he's Jon Snow, and then Sean Bean is his father.
Oh, Sean Bean's in Game of Thrones. Gotcha.
Yeah. So like, it's just funny to see that they would wind up doing, Game of Thrones together. It's kind of funny that they have this on-set experience. This is actually Kit Harington's first movie.
Really?
Yeah.
He's not bad in it.
No, he's not. I was just surprised that this was his first. I never would have guessed a video game movie, especially Silent Hill Revelations. In something like this. But yeah, overall, I kind of liked the setup of okay, he does finally connect to them through the mirror, basically, and he does is told about everything that okay, your daughter's back, and how does he deal with that and whatnot. Super video gamey in a way to me, because compared to I think if this was a regular movie, I think a lot of people would be questioning okay, his daughter's back, he's not gonna I just feel his reaction to it is a little bit different than it just reminds me of a lot of Resident Evil, where it's just they just accept things that have happened and they don't really question it too much, if that makes sense. when I feel like in other movies are going to be like, they'll do a whole scene of being like, where were you? What happened? He's just like, my ghost wife told me, daughter back, don't bring her to Silent Hill. I'm not going to question anything.
Exactly.
And I like that. I like lock it in. Don't even question it. And they do that in the entire movie. That
Fucking
they're like they just commit to like, yeah, this shit is happening. I don't need to explain it really. It's just it is what it is. The only thing I don't like about this movie is in terms of the lore, it felt like the Silent Hill part of like the plot, like I just was kind of confused of why. I thought everything was resolved in the first one. I actually liked the first one's kind of like plot about it's a girl getting revenge, and like and it's kind of
like she's evil, so are they. They're harming people, and she's kind of not really, so to speak.
And
but
she has a revenge where she wipes basically everyone out in town.
And then it's just that, but again.
So I was confused on that of like, who are these people? Why weren't they in the other movie? Basically,
there is the one woman there. I forget what her actor's name was or what her character's name was, but I think she had a throwaway line saying that the bad woman from the first movie is her sister or something like that.
Oh,
something like that. They also got what's his name to play her father and your Kit guy's grandfather in the cell, and I'm like, okay, he's pretty good. I forget what his name was, but I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
I'll just add that, like, I don't think this one is as good as the first one. I think the later half definitely is closer to the first one, but the first one was just overall, like, from the very beginning to the end, where it's just this very, like, uneasy but somber at the same time kind of just vibe. And, like, this one I felt was more rushed and chaotic.
Well, I think good example...
how does she deal with all that? Every day, she has, like, 2 or 3, like, I'm going to hell worlds moments. Like, how is she even alive?
You could argue that's a metaphor for something that some people go through in real life, whether that be like autism or PTSD or anything that like might
and when
make
she's
you shut
sleeping
down.
Too, she's then also going to Silent Hill.
So I didn't realize this was a direct sequel. I just thought, they just made another Silent Hill movie, and then like I see Sean Bean, and I'm like, was Sean Bean in that first movie?
Yeah, remember he like,
and then I'm
like breaks the law and like he
I know now, but like at the first time I'm like, was he in that first movie? I'm like, oh wait, this is okay. Wow, it's all starting to come back because this was a year ago that we watched that movie. For me it was the first time. You had it. It's a classic Devon household staple apparently. But okay. So I think a good example of what you're saying, like rushed or maybe perhaps almost feeling like it was a tacked on continuation as opposed to like whatever thought process they had of building this world for the original film from like the ground up, as opposed to what I think they did in this film, which is like just a tack on, let's just try to continue it they didn't really add anything to it. Not really. Yeah, like there's people and there's the order, but that was kind of already in the first movie. A good example of the tacked onness is Pyramid Head's inclusion is very boring. He's just like a dude in the background, just kind of like moving a merry-go-round. It's just like background material until the one time he tries to fight, and at the end he like comes to our character's aid, and like that's it. Like why put him in there? You know what I mean? Besides just like we just want to do it.
Yeah,
it just feels like a cartoon where it's like this villain is the main villain of the first arc or the first few episodes or whatever. And by the end of it, he's just a goofy guy that gets to hang out in the background at the party. It just feels like to me.
Because in the first one, and like he is like, even if you don't know anything about Silent Hill, if you've probably seen him before in horror, whether it's like, or maybe in other video games like Dead by Daylight, he's in that now, and you've seen him before if you even have a general knowledge of horror.
And he's also inspired a lot of video game villain, like bad guy horror villains as well. And
what was great in the Silent Hill movies is that he disappears. Like there was no like hint that he was going to be in it. He just like in the school, remember? And like and then they get in that one room and he's just stabbing through the door.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah.
And they like the cop was running out of bullets. Like that was cool. And this one, like he's in the beginning. I mean, I thought it was like at least neat to show him in there. I thought it was like a different one though, like I thought it was like a different. I wish they did like a different character to be like they still could have made him creepy and shit like they did with all the other characters. Just have a creepy dude who's just like that's his job. He just sits in there and like moves the carousel. Yeah, I mean, at least the creature designs are like cool outside of like where they used them. Yeah, the freaking mannequin spider, I was not expecting that at all, and that was such a great design. I love that. It's very unique, and it also just fit with that world. I feel like
I don't know if it's from any of the games or not.
In this world,
The closest thing I can think of anything of this being resembling any of the games is our main character there. Her overall look, and I'm mainly just saying the fact that she's blonde with short, straight hair, looks a lot like the main character from Silent Hill 4: The Room, but it's not the same person.
Right?
Yeah, well, Sharon is her actual name.
Yeah.
Heather, and many names before that. But I don't think any of the stuff in this movie is from the games besides Pyramid Head being back or whatever. But he's only in Silent Hill 2, the game.
I wonder if there's like a carnival.
But maybe there is
in one of the games.
A mannequin spider. I think the one cool thing about the mannequin spider is that like it's like a spider, catches people and then like turns them into mannequins through some process, and then takes their head off. Their head is still sentient, but then it like pierces through the brain or something like that, and like that's it.
And I love that the webs are all like plastic too.
Yeah,
like it wasn't just webbing. It was like, because I was like seeing that, I'm just like, this is very like interesting, because usually they do like fence and like chains and like barbed wire, which I thought was cool, but I like that they changed it up. They changed it up a little bit. They're like, hey, we got plastic, and I'm like, you don't think that's creepy at first, but like just a whole like room covered in dusty plastic, and like
imagine being wrapped up in saran wrap. Like that's just as bad as a spider web, if not maybe worse, because I don't think you can breathe through that. It's about that part where I'm like, okay, the movie's starting to actually feel like I don't want to say like a Silent Hill thing, but like like a horror movie. Like there's something there. It's not just like girl on the run accidentally walks into a murder, or she has an episode where all of a sudden the world turns upside down. It actually feels like it's
I like how that she
interesting.
Saves that one girl and then she doesn't, though. I like that they just moved on from that. Like I like that they're like, no, she doesn't always save the day. She's kind of just clumsily walking through this. She has really no power. I do like that once they brought the music back again.
Yeah.
And they pulled it straight from the games, because I remember last time we weren't entirely sure, but then we did some research and they're like, all the music from the first Silent Hill movie is in the games. It's because I've listened to it on Spotify, used it for like streams or whatnot, and it's just so good. It's just so eerie and simplistic, which is like a trope for like horror, like classic horror soundtracks, like Halloween, right? It's like 3 notes or whatever. It's like dun, 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 dun. It's super simple, but like that's I think what makes it so creepy. It's just like it's more of like the killer's gonna get you eventually. It doesn't matter how fast you can run, where you hide. It's like a timer, like tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. So like to me, like a lot of the music was simplistic, but in a good way. And then like when it was slower, it was just very eerie, and like it just added with the fog, and so 10 out of 10 for the music.
It just takes a long time to get to that point, unfortunately. And I also feel like our other new, like, bladed, creepy thing with the woman thing, which is actually the main bad guy.
Which we didn't know. What we thought in the beginning was just like a random thing after her, and later on we find out, like, no, it was the main woman the entire time. I had a note for her. Swordwoman was cool. I liked her.
See, I disagree. I think
all
she's
the
very
metal
boring.
on her. I like things with blades for arms. It's cool.
Yeah, you just like anime.
I just like anime.
No, I thought she was actually very boring. To me, it felt like movie writer directors trying to make a Silent Hill creepy bad guy. But for some reason, of course, this popped up before the spider. And I'm like, oh, this is just this movie's version of Pyramid Head, like the thing that chases her, I guess, or something. And I'm like, this is boring. And then, like, again, just talk about the mannequin spider. It moved. It was all CG, obviously, but it looked good. It moved quick. You know what I mean? It had a presence. I don't know. It was a lot better than like I'm an actual person. I will say this: the mannequin spider looked more real and more convincing than your Blade Woman, and I'm not lying. Yeah. But no, like this movie opens with a dream, and we're in the house and we're doing all this stuff. Sharon, which is now Heather, and her father, Sean Bean, whose name is Sean Bean in the movie. It's weird. They've been moving and moving because they're always on the run. At one point, he accidentally killed someone, or he did kill someone on purpose that was trying to bring him back to Silent Hill. So they've been on the run. Yeah. And so she's always going to new schools, and she goes to a school, and it's her first day in class, and it is something that would definitely not ever happen in a high school, where she's like, she just has a speech of like, don't IM me on Facebook. I won't tweet at you. I won't read your blog.
You'd be bullied so fucking hard, bro. Like afterwards, there would be like, so people would be pulling out their phones, or you'd be on TikTok in like 10 minutes, you know, like being like, look at this dumb girl. She's like bitching about moving.
Like, don't IM me on Facebook, bro. No one wants to be your friend. You won't even see us. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my boy Kit Harington, Vincent.
Yeah.
Is like, no, I agree. Like, big news sucks. And like,
of course, but we learn later, you know. But yeah.
And I want to say shout out to Vincent though. He was always there. Even when she's like, I don't need help, and like he could tell. He knew she was in trouble, and he was always there, and he was putting his life on the line, you know. And we later find out he's part of the Order.
So it kind of undoes everything you just said, but
yeah, but it was hinted at. It wasn't hinted, but like I was like, as those movies going along, I'm like, man, he hasn't questioned anything. But I'm like, but neither did Harry, Sean Bean's character, like really either. Where he's like, yeah, this girl's from a demon world and whatever.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, I am kind of upset that I didn't think of that when it was happening in the film. But I do remember thinking like, wow, they're trying to introduce this character, having him be sympathetic to our main character, but we don't know jack shit about him. This is so weird. Like, I don't care about him because I don't know anything about him. He did say something about how his mother was overbearing and that his grandfather was in like an insane asylum or something like that. But besides that, like, we don't know what his likes are. Like, these characters haven't like talked, if that makes sense. We don't know, like, you always want to make sure that a character has like a goal or a dream, something to be like, when this is all over, I am going to open up my florist shop, something. You know what I mean? And like, we didn't hear anything about that. I'm like, huh? Like, they're going to try to kill this kid off, and they're going to play it up as this big sorrowful thing, but like, he's just a weirdly clingy guy to me at this moment. And like, okay, he's a part of the Order. It was all a trick, but then he realized he didn't want to be. His line saying, I'm a part of the Order is like really but
cheesy, but like,
yeah. Again, how much is that him? How much is that a script? How much is that direction? How much is that which take did they pick, and blah blah blah.
I wish they'd let him do his like actual accent, which is, you know, very thick. I think he's Scottish, British, whatever. UK folks are all confusing to me. He's like, I'm Jon Snow. I'll click this. I wish he just had that, because then that would have made the movie 10 times better for me. I love his accent. He says, "Oh, we have to go to Silent Hill. We can't go to Silent Hill." Like,
he does have a bit of that when he's loud. His voice kind of goes there a little bit. In like how he does some of the loud vowels. But and then they're in Silent Hill, and because he takes her, and then they go, and the father's kidnapped, and blah 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 blah. She needed to go back to Silent Hill willingly for reasons.
Well, she had to go. Well, she's always wanted to go, I think, or didn't know too much about it, but wanted to find out what happened to her mother. And then her father, once he gets captured or whatever, and he tells her not to do it, and like obviously it was a trap to bait her to come back because she wants to save her father, obviously. So,
right.
Like, that was the reasoning.
But I remember at one point, because it was raised. The thing was raised of like, why wasn't I just kidnapped? Why didn't you quit kidnapping me? Why all the trickery? Is like, you needed to come back willingly. I'm like, oh, that's not really explained, but whatever. It just doesn't need to be.
Like, to me, like classic, like Resident Evil, where it's just like, yeah, it is what it is. Or just like Japanese horror games in general. I feel like they're just like, this is the rule, and you just have to accept it. Sorry.
Yeah.
We can't open this portal without this key. Okay.
There's something like that in another movie we're about to do a podcast about as well, where I'm like, really? This? But in any case, yeah, it's like, I feel like, as opposed to the first movie, this second movie had less, like, stuff to do in Silent Hill. They just basically went straight to the bad guys, and then, like, she tried to find the other half to the symbol she had, and then that ended up being a bad guy, and then we're like right at the end. So it's funny to me, like, once we get past Mannequin Spider, the film just starts to zoom along, in my opinion. And while I'm not against that, because again, I want these movies over with as soon as possible. I want to get them out in the rearview mirror. And I think back about the first movie, I'm like, I remember this location and that location and this location and that location and this and that and this and that. I remember them being way up high and all the wood down below, and I remember them being in the school, and I remember the stabby thing you mentioned earlier, and the elevator that went down forever, right? And here I'm like, Mannequin Spider, Carnival, Final Showdown, bad guy in cell.
Yeah.
Which order was that again? Like, that's kind of my memory. And I watched this movie yesterday, you know. So it doesn't feel as memorable, but at the same time, this is, I guess, supposed to be a sequel where, like, the walls peel and revealing all the rust and the dried up paint and the, you know, the innards of what makes this world the way it is all burning up. Like, that's, like, shown a lot in the first movie to actually, for effect, actually make an impact, and obviously explaining why and all this. Here it just happens with, like, if you watch this movie without watching the first one, you would have questions, or like be like, oh, that's really weird, or like, it's weird that it only happened a couple times, or yeah, it's just used again, so to speak. A lot of this is just that first movie again without really a whole lot of new big picture things. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I agree, and like, but there was moments like where they did show stuff from the first movie to kind of explain, like, I forgot her name for some reason. The evil girl
Sharon?
was
Alyssa.
Alyssa was, you know, brought to this one place and burned basically, and then, but they never. Like, this one thing, back to my thing about, like, I don't know why I keep saying video game horror tropes, but I just feel like it happens a lot in video game horror, whether it's like a Devil May Cry or something, but where, like, there's just characters who just, like, their wills are stronger, and like, or like they're the chosen one, but they don't ever explain it, and like she survives that fire, right, and then like wipes out, or basically takes down the whole city with her, bring it to hell or whatever it is, and like they briefly show that, but I think I agree with you though. If like you didn't see the first one and didn't understand where they explain it much more in depth in the first one,
right?
And I think in a good way. I feel like it'd be too rushed, and you'd be like, "Oh, okay."
Like
it just doesn't, and it does. I don't think they did it in a way that flowed necessarily, but that's the issue I think with this movie, is that like it is definitely more of a tack on and not a standalone thing. Because we've seen movies where they are sequels, but they could be their own standalone thing.
Right.
Literally like Fast Five.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
talked about Fast Five is a
Exactly.
perfect example where you can watch Fast Five and not know anything.
We almost recommend it.
Yeah.
That way.
Same with Fast Six was like another one. I think both
Sure.
those movies as standalones we've said that are
Yeah.
good just by themselves.
And even some of the Resident Evil movies we've been watching, I'm like, they are more standalone-ish than this one. This one really relies on you remembering. Another good point about that, they like bump into a lot of people in that first movie to really show how, like, hey, people live here. When the siren goes on, it means the world's going crazy. Get inside, hide. Here they don't explain that. It just happens, and you don't actually see anyone besides Mom of Alyssa, just to give us exposition about stuff that was in the first movie, and then the random girl caught in the mannequin spider. Yeah. Unless I'm wrong, there's like no one else, right? It's just the order.
There's like some ghosts in the town.
Okay.
And here's my one other critique.
But hold on. My point is that big picture, if you're looking at this without seeing the first movie, all you think of as Silent Hill is just the order. That's the only people that are there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a different viewpoint than that first movie. It just relies on that first movie so much. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, kind of tying with that is to make it even bigger. Is like I wish they brought back some of those sections you're talking about, even just for one scene. Like I wish they showed that sign, right, which is cool. It's like they showed it in the game. I'm pretty sure it's maybe one of the game's covers. I don't know. I've seen it before outside of the movie.
Sure.
I wish, like that, in the first Silent Hill movie, they went through it 3 or 4 times. They show people entering and exiting Silent Hill where the sign is around that like bend, and bend goes into the fog. And they think they only show it twice in this movie. It was at the very end.
Yeah.
Like them leaving or walking out, and I just wish they showed like the beginning parts of the Silent Hill.
That's a good point. When did they arrive?
Well, I think it's because like she can go anytime. I feel like it was like I don't know. It's one of those things where you just accept it.
It did kind of make it seem more like Silent Hill was just another realm and not like.
You can go. She could have like been in her own bed, and she could
another plane of existence.
Yeah, it wasn't
as opposed to a literal place that you go to.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I liked that it was a literal place more than. And they did drive. I know they were on their way there, but all of a sudden they are there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wish they showed the beginning parts of them coming to Silent Hill. At least one of the characters, not all of them, like they did in the first movie. Because in the first movie, I think they showed everybody entering and leaving who needed to enter and leave Silent Hill.
Yeah.
And I know at the end because at the end they show like the tractor trailer coming in and picking him up, and it goes past the Silent Hill sign. Why is he driving through there? I don't know, but like as soon as like the town is cleansed, all of a sudden,
well, I think
the truck
idea
driver's
is that,
like, oh, this Google Maps told me this route's open now. You know what I mean? I could go through
my assumption from the first movie is that like it is just an abandoned town, but for certain people, you enter the plane, the realm there, and you're there in Silent Hill. And so, like, a tractor trailer could drive through and you wouldn't know, and he'd be fine because he's not important to the fate of this town type of, stuff.
Yeah.
But, then this movie is like, oh, yeah, when she just wakes up one morning and she's walking to school, and then it happens to her right there. It's like, what? Because she's Alyssa's virginity or something.
Her purity, right? Where that's how I kind of thought of it. Like, it was all the good parts of her. Yeah.
And then they reunite, and then she basically goes up to, like, help Alyssa. But, like, Alyssa's like, you shouldn't have come, blah, 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 and yada, yada. And it's like, bruh.
They basically hug it out. Literally.
Yeah.
They hug
That's
it out.
and girls solve problems.
They morph together into one.
Yeah, exactly. And then she, like, goes to hand the thing to the bad woman. But then I think it's Alyssa channels power through her and kills her or something like that. Does her head blow off or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, something to that effect. And then Sean Bean lives. They
questionably.
He at the end he says, "I need to go find."
Oh yeah, they make a point. They make a point being like the ash stopped because remember from only the first movie, although maybe there was a throwaway line that said in this one as well. The coal fires just burns endlessly. That's why in Silent Hill there's always just the ash. And they make a point saying that the ash stopped. But then they kind of tease that it's back again. So I'm like, oh, okay, because they're going to make a third movie starring Sean Bean, probably. But like,
I guess there's still a chance.
I mean, there is. 6 years in... Well, 2018 would have been the 6th year. Man.
We should...
Next year is the 10th anniversary of this movie.
Damn. Okay, like let's quickly. I want to ask rather. Would you want a third one, or like let's say like there's going to be a new Silent Hill movie? Would you want a completely reboot, or would you want a third one in this?
See, I like the idea of Silent Hill 2, the game, about a guy that's trying to find his wife, and then he realizes that she's dead. But he always knew that he was the one that killed her. I like that idea of a story in of itself a lot better than what this movie did in the previous one. So I would like to say, just like Resident Evil, at least attempt a faithful adaptation about your source material. Or even the original Silent Hill was a man trying to find his daughter. I think his name was even Harry as well something.
I guess he's and then the first movie he's trying to find his wife and daughter.
Yeah, but like he enters Silent Hill and yada yada. I would like at least an attempt at trying to do the source material, but at the same time, it wouldn't be against a third one starring Sean Bean. Maybe they'll kill him this time. It's the long game. It's the long con. Game. Yeah. Eventually, we're gonna get you Sean Bean.
I just feel like it's so long at this point that if they made a third one, it wouldn't be. You'd have to do what we were just saying: make a standalone film, and you can tie it to that in some way.
Kind of like. So we also do another podcast series called The Chronicles of Diesel. And in that, we are going to be talking soon about the final, so far, Chronicles of Riddick movie. And that movie is years and years and years after its previous one, which was also years and years after its previous one. Same thing with like Triple X, and like some of these are just weird franchises that just every 7 years, 8 years, you see another one. It's like, cool, I remember that, I'll see it. But other people are like, I can come in anytime. But like this movie, you can't come in and enjoy it as much as you could.
And I wonder if that's the
without that first one.
It hurt people.
It's like
one of the reasons it hurt the box
hurt
office.
Itself, yeah.
Is that like people just probably are like
it's
Revelations.
Whatever.
Yeah, I'd never seen the first one. I don't know what this is, or maybe they saw the first one, didn't like it, and they're like, yeah, whatever.
Or they saw it, not saw the first one, and told people like, yeah, I don't know, it was okay. I don't really know what was going on.
Very confused.
Like, cool. I guess there's games about it. Can I play any on modern day? No, you can't. We haven't made a Silent Hill game since like 2007.
After watching this movie, though, just like the first one, rewatching it again, where I'm just like, I want to try one of these. Yeah. Like I want to try because it just feels like a good atmosphere. I really dig
Halloween,
this atmosphere.
Actually, the day this episode goes up, I will actually be streaming Silent Hill 2. The actual PlayStation 2 version of it. I'll be streaming it. So I'll be re-experiencing it because I didn't play much of it when I played it as a kid because I was legitimately too scared. But we were really down on this movie for this episode. At the beginning of this movie, we were like, hey, this was good. This was fun. Much better than Blood Rain.
Jesus,
so let's talk about a few positives besides the mannequin spider, and besides Kit's acting and I guess Sean Bean's acting. I do think our main character, I forget what the actor's name was, but I think she actually wasn't bad. A lot of what she did...
Adelaide Clemens is Heather.
Okay. I think what she did wasn't bad. I think overall she felt like she was true to horror movie last girl type of trope, but also being a little bit realistic. And there's a little bit of the whole fakeness and this and that, and it kind of worked. I don't think I have any like critiques I would hand her, so to speak, if my opinion mattered that much to someone that was in a movie 9 years ago.
I really don't think any of the actors in this movie were bad.
Yeah,
really. Like everyone just did their part. Or maybe some of the lines were
there's so
weird.
Few actors too.
Sure,
you know.
Yeah, there really was not that many. Yeah, I mean everyone I think just acted well. But I think my favorite actor probably in the movie was, honestly, it probably might have just been Heather, just because she had the most lines and she did her part. And like you said, she does kind of capture that, like, the last girl in the horror movie, but also she does, I think, capture that, like, I'm a young girl, I don't know what's happening, my whole mind was white. I feel like she did that well. Like, she did, when she had to do, like, her evil version, I think she was cool. So.
Yeah. And, she is a kid that presumably has been shuttled around different towns, different schools, no friends because of that type stuff.
I also just wouldn't send my kid to school, by the way. But
yeah,
if I had to murder someone to save my daughter, and it was justified, don't get me wrong, totally justified. Yeah. But if the cops are on me, I'm not risking sending my kid to a public school where, even if she changed her name and all that, like, I'm assuming the cops are after me at all times. Also, so like, I would just not do that. But whatever. It's, once again, they just do shit, and I'm okay with it. So.
I mean, at least they didn't say that he had a job or anything, because he's rich. He has a lot of money. Remember the house?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? They even showed a little bit.
Modern
it's
house.
Huge. Like, they're rich. So, like, hey, a private tutor, maybe, or just, you know what, you guys are on the run. Supernatural shit's coming after you. It's okay, unfortunately, to not have a future.
If you pass high
just
school,
chill.
If you pass high school, I'm not saying teachers aren't important, but just like I think I could teach my kid the necessities to like be a functioning adult.
Right.
Like, sorry, they probably won't be good at math. Sorry, but I don't think
unless you were good at math. But
unless I was getting like. I don't know trig, but I also don't know if my kid needs to know trig to survive if we're going to be on the run for the rest of our lives because I murdered someone. But like I said, it's the plot hole is not really a plot hole because it just moves the story along. It doesn't matter. She needed to meet Vincent. And they needed to show that like her life sucks and she can't even go to like school, because that's what kids do, go to school.
Yeah.
So like without there being some sort of visions or whatnot every 3 hours. So like I feel like it's fine. It's just like it's just funny to think about. Like, yeah, we probably would not send my kid to school if I murdered someone 6 months ago.
She doesn't ride the school bus because the story needed to have a private investigator tailing her. Yeah, we just jumped straight to. Oh, I love the part where he's like, I can't find math. Like, bro, you think there's just one classroom that's math? What weird town is this that just has here's the math class?
Silent Hill City.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, where were they? I don't really remember because I remember them saying that Silent Hill
somewhere nearish to Silent Hill where you could drive there in a day.
Because I remember they were driving and there was a map, and I remember they said something about like it was in Virginia or West Virginia, Silent Hill. I can forget what.
Oh, the first movie had it for sure.
So I'm like, they got to be within like. Either like
why
upper
fucking
south
go to Europe, Sean Bean. She can't go to Silent Hill if she needs to go through customs.
Mexico, one of the two.
Yeah, no, just
you want to go to Europe, just one's close.
Get on a plane, go to Australia. They think honestly, Australians probably think Sean Bean is adorable.
Isn't
what
Sean
I mean? Just
Bean
go
Australian,
there.
Or is he English?
Oh, I have no idea. Honestly, I just assumed he was American, but he probably isn't.
Is he? I don't know. Let me look. Sean Bean seems like an English ass name.
Jonathan. Well, you're thinking of Mr. Bean.
England,
oh,
UK,
damn.
South Yorkshire.
Damn.
Yeah. So shout out to. Oh, now I need to look up where Kit Harington's from because it's bothering me where his accent is from.
Where's Mr. Bean?
He's
from?
London too. Oh, so I don't know my accents.
Londonites.
Is everyone in this movie British? Hold up. Adelaide, she's from Australia. So a lot of British folks. Here's a hot take, just in movies in general.
British people shouldn't act.
No, I just want everyone to just do their like actual accents. I don't even care, even if they're like, "This is medieval Scotland," like bro's American. I just think it'd be funny to like just just like I want movie for like a whole year. I want every movie to be made that everyone has to just do the regular voices.
Damn. We just had a whole year that was also themed after something. It was no movies.
Yeah. Well, no, I would love to see Tom Holland be his British self
in Spider-Man.
In
Uncharted. Oh my god,
dude! British Uncharted would be hilarious.
We'll talk about that trailer on probably the next episode of the Sonic Movie Show. But someone pointed out on Twitter that they tucked his shirt in. Like that was the thing. Is that like Nathan Drake has his shirt always half tucked.
At least
this is fully tucked. It's like, ugh.
It's probably more convenient, dude. It probably might have looked weird because there's a lot of. I think people, forget that like what clothing looks like in a video game on a screen might just look weird. So they might have done the half tuck and they're like, bro, that looks dumb. Just either full tuck
or just like
tuck.
Having to remember how tucked it is every time you redo the scene and continue a scene. Yeah. Well, we're talking about Silent Hill Revelation, which is a fine film, a good film, a film I appreciate mainly because we watched Blood Rain, 2 weeks ago. That felt so old. And this one felt, I wouldn't say 2012. But I would say like 2006, around the time of the first movie. It's just what it feels like.
At least it was consistent with the other Silent Hill movie where it there's some movies that do or come out, like a good example is like The Thing. So The Thing came out in the 80s, had practical effects, all look good. Then they redid or did it not redid it, but made a prequel to it called The Thing or something like that in like 2012 or whatever. And I remember like they talked about doing practical effects again. They're like, no, it's gonna be all CG for the most part, and like it just doesn't feel the same because it's like, no, the original Thing was just all practical effects. It was awesome, still generally holds up today. And it's just like, how is that supposed to be a prequel? You know what I mean? It just feels weird.
Yeah.
I get like you could do CGI for like bigger scale things, but like if you can do practical effects.
It's just like with Peter Jackson with The Hobbit. The orcs were CG in The Hobbit, whereas in Lord of the Rings they were people makeup. Peter Jackson actually has a quote saying that he hated the fact that the orcs in Lord of the Rings weren't CG. He wished that he could have made them CG. Because he said CG is easy to remove. Like, orcs weren't supposed to show any humanity in them at all. So when you have a human in makeup, it just naturally has that. It's like he's saying, like, that's why like I made the orcs CG in The Hobbit so that we can remove all humanity. And I'm like, everyone, whenever there's anything CG, a CG humanoid character, like, oh, it looks so uncanny. But that was actually the point he wanted to make. And I'm like, interesting, Peter Jackson.
I still think I prefer the orcs, though, in Lord of the Rings.
It's just
than the
cool.
Hobbits.
It's a commitment thing, but,
yeah.
you know, but, yeah. This movie, mostly practical besides the mannequin spider, yeah.
No, I feel like we kind of said everything we wanted to say about this movie. I think out of all the video game movies we've watched so far, I'd say it's in the middle of the pack, though. It's not like a heavy hitter.
Yeah.
I think the first one was much higher than this one, just because, like we said, it feels more like a tack on. So if you watch the first movie and you haven't seen this one, I would definitely say, hey, watch it. It's cool.
This kind of fits in with a lot of the weaker Resident Evil movies we've seen so far, and like in like the Hitman movie where it's just, although the Hitman movie wasn't good, that was actually kind of bad. Not the recent one, folks, that may not know, but the first Hitman movie, the one from 2007, that made almost $100 million, starring a guy from a Vin Diesel movie, which is wild. But yeah, no, like I agree. This is like in the middle, but considering all of the movies we have, the middle's still kind of low feeling. We have some high highs like Detective Pikachu and the Sonic. And the Sonic movie, sorry. And I would say even Prince of Persia.
Yeah,
I would even say
those are our big three so far. And I don't know if it's gonna get better, unless there's like a gem.
Well, we did like the 2021 Mortal Kombat. It wasn't amazing, but we liked it.
Yeah, but I think that's still a different tier than like Prince of Persia.
And then we have like crazy, funny, good movies like Street Fighter and Super Mario Brothers, where I'm like,
that's in like its own subsection. I don't even want to like put them.
These are like it's in the wild section.
Yeah,
like, these movies are wild. You know,
yeah. If there's a tree, it's in like its own separate like bush.
Exactly,
there's a bush next to that tree, and that's the super wild. You take some berries. There's some berries on that.
Yeah.
Trips.
Yeah, like. But then we have movies like Warcraft that's like very well made, like they CG'd the fuck out of to make Azeroth, which I think that's the place from World of Warcraft, Azeroth with the Z. But like it's also not very interesting. This movie is kind of in that realm where it's like not as like a lot of practical commitment, but it's also not interesting, yada yada. Not as good as the first one, just because it felt like there was a lot of original stuff that they did, as we've said many, many times. So I think we're going to call it for this episode of the Sonic Movie Show. Next movie won't be a spooky one, a Halloween-themed one. You'll have to wait till next year to actually hear our thoughts on Blood Rain 2 Deliverance.
Well, there might be... Don't we have a couple that are, I guess, arguably horror? Like, don't we have, like, Doom?
Yeah, people could see from the picture. I mean, we'll talk when we finally watch Doom. We'll tell you my history about how I saw, like, the first, like, 5 seconds of that movie. Then The Rock said fuck, and my mom turned to change the channel. And I was like,
awesome. See, that's awesome, though. I almost don't want to watch it now, because I feel like that should be your impression of that film.
No, not all. I would honestly say none of them, unless Doom is like a horror movie, which I don't think it is. I think it's just a high action movie. I don't really see any horrorness.
I'm saying like like there's monsters. I'm pretty sure like there's monsters, and they go to like a base, and they just have to like they're like a kill squad. Or at least that's my understanding. So to me, it's like horror in the sense of like
sure,
like
a aliens,
and aliens,
plural.
Honestly, Resident Evil, the first Resident Evil movie, is basically like that.
Yeah, but I don't know. These Silent Hill movies are in a different realm where it's like, hey, you're powerless, and they just try to kill you.
Doom isn't like horror first. You know what I mean? It isn't.
Yeah.
I could hear an argument of like if someone said, "Oh, Doom is a horror game," I'd be like, I hear you.
Gotcha. Well, we had fun. I would definitely. We need to rank our October films. Let's just rank them, just for fun. Blood Rain at the bottom, Silent Hill Revelation, Silent Hill.
Easy money.
Perfect. Yeah. Do we have any? Why don't we do some predictions?
Predictions?
We have Blood. So next year, assuming we don't change anything, it's probably going to be Blood Rain 2 Deliverance and House of the Dead. Do we think Blood Rain 2 Deliverance will be worse than the original? And do we think House of the Dead might be like kind of,
Blood Rain 2, for its own sake, cannot, and I repeat this, should not and cannot be worse than the first Blood Rain. I'm like, you have to improve. If you fail to improve from a garbage movie, what are we doing here? And then you made a third.
That's what I was going to say. They couldn't have failed that hard if they continued it still, you know?
So like
same thing with House of the Dead also has a sequel.
I'm going to say House of the Dead's going to be above Blood Rain 2, and Blood Rain 2 is going to be above Blood Rain. And then I don't think we're going to take down.
You think Silent Hill 1 and 2 will be our 1 and 2 still? Yeah. Okay. I'll take that prediction. Okay. But yeah, we won't see you next October. That's not the soonest you'll see us. We'll see you next week for another regular episode of the Sonic Movie Show, talking about Sonic news, movie news, and stuff. Bye.
Did you get all your clothes from Goodwill? Fucking classist.